Marcus Chen heard the crying before he saw the boy. It was 10:30 at night, and the executive floor of Thornhill Industries should have been empty. Marcus pushed his cleaning cart down the polished marble hallway, the wheels squeaking softly in the silence. He'd worked as a night janitor here for 8 months, invisible to the people who strode these corridors during daylight hours. That invisibility suited him fine. After everything that had happened, being seen felt dangerous. But crying children, that was different. That sound pulled at something deep in his chest, something he couldn't ignore even when he wanted to. Marcus followed the sound to the corner office, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. The door stood slightly ajar. He should have kept walking, minded his business, finished his shift. Instead, he knocked gently. "Hello? Is someone in there?" The crying stopped abruptly. Marcus pushed the door open wider and found a boy, maybe 9 or 10 years old, sitting in a wheelchair beside an enormous desk. The child's face was streaked with tears, his hands clutching what looked like a broken robot, pieces scattered across his lap. "Hey there," Marcus said softly, the way he spoke to his own daughter when she was upset. "You okay, buddy?" The boy looked up, eyes red and swollen. He had delicate features, dark hair that fell across his forehead, and an expression that carried too much sadness for someone so young. For a moment he just stared at Marcus as if trying to decide whether this stranger was safe. "My robot," the boy finally whispered, his voice breaking. "It's broken. My dad made it for me before he died, and now it's broken, and I can't fix it, and nobody else can fix it either." Marcus's chest tightened. He knew that particular flavor of grief, the kind that attached itself to objects because the person who gave them was gone forever. He set down his spray bottle and stepped closer, keeping his movements slow and unthreatening. "Can I take a look?" The boy hesitated, then nodded. Marcus knelt beside the wheelchair, careful not to invade the child's space. Up close, he could see the robot was sophisticated, far beyond a typical toy, custom-built, probably by someone with real engineering knowledge. The arm had come loose and several wires had disconnected from the main circuit board. "What's your name?" Marcus asked as he gently picked up one of the pieces. "Ethan." "I'm Marcus. This is beautiful work, Ethan. Your dad must have been really talented." Ethan's lip trembled. He was the best. He could build anything. Mom says he was a genius, but I just remember that he always had time to play with me, even when he was tired. Marcus swallowed hard against the familiar ache. That's what matters most. Not the genius part, the being there part. He examined the robot more closely, turning it carefully in his hands. The design was elegant, efficient. Whoever built this understood both engineering and what would make a child smile. Marcus had spent 6 years working in robotics before his life fell apart, before his wife got sick, before medical bills swallowed their savings, before he lost everything except his daughter and a crushing load of debt. He'd given up his career to care for his wife in those final months, and by the time she died, his credentials meant nothing. No recent experience, no references, no way back into the field. But he still remembered how circuits worked, how servos connected, how to make broken things whole again. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. "I think I can fix this," Marcus said quietly. Ethan's eyes widened. "Really? My mom hired 3 different engineers. They all said it was too complicated, that they'd need the original schematics." "Well, I'm not an engineer, not anymore." Marcus smiled gently. "But I used to be, and your dad left some clues in how he built this. See here?" He pointed to a connection point. "This kind of design is modular. That means each part can work independently, but they all communicate through this central processor. If we can reconnect these pathways and recalibrate the servo motors, we should be able to get him moving again. You really think so? I do, but I'll need some tools. And some time. Ethan wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, hope flickering across his features for the first time. What kind of tools? Marcus glanced around the office, then at his cleaning cart. Actually, I have a small electronics kit in my locker. I use it to fix my daughter's toys when they break. Would you be okay waiting here while I grab it? I'm supposed to wait for my mom. She's in a meeting that's running late. Ethan looked at the closed doors deeper in the office suite. She said she'd only be an hour, but it's been 3. She works a lot. Something in the way Ethan said it, the resignation mixed with longing, struck Marcus hard. He heard his own daughter Emma in those words. Daddy, when are you coming home? Why do you have to work all night? Don't you want to see me? I'll be right back, Marcus promised. 5 minutes. He jogged to the janitor's closet, grabbed his toolkit from his locker, and returned to find Ethan exactly where he'd left him, still clutching the broken robot like a lifeline. Marcus pulled over a chair and sat beside the wheelchair, spreading out his tools on the desk. Okay, he said, positioning the robot under the desk lamp. Let's see what we can do. Marcus worked carefully, his hands moving with the muscle memory of a skill he thought he'd lost. He reconnected the severed wires, checking each connection against the logic of the overall design. He recalibrated the servo in the robot's arm, adjusted the tension in the joints, and reprogrammed the central processor using a sequence he'd used hundreds of times in his old life. Ethan watched intently, asking quiet questions. What does that wire do? Why did you twist it that way? How do you know which part connects where? Marcus answered each one patiently, explaining the principles without talking down to the boy. Ethan was smart, frighteningly so, and he absorbed information like a sponge. My dad used to explain things like this, Ethan said softly. Mom's really smart too, but she doesn't have time to sit with me anymore. She's always working, always in meetings, always stressed. I know it's because she's trying to keep the company going, but sometimes I just miss when we were all together. Marcus's hand stilled for a moment. I'm sure she misses that too. She doesn't talk about Dad anymore. I think it hurts too much. Sometimes the people we love the most are the hardest ones to talk about, Marcus said gently. That doesn't mean she's forgotten. It just means the missing is so big it doesn't fit into words. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Is your wife gone too? You said you used to be an engineer. Marcus took a breath. He didn't talk about Claire, not to anyone except Emma, and even then only when his daughter asked directly. But something about this boy, this moment, felt safe in a way Marcus hadn't experienced in 2 years. Yeah, cancer. It was fast and slow at the same time, if that makes sense. Fast enough that we didn't get to do all the things we planned. Slow enough that I had to watch her slip away piece by piece. I'm sorry. Me too. Marcus tested the robot's arm joint, satisfied with the movement. But I have my daughter, Emma. She's 7 and she's the reason I get up every morning, even on the days when getting up feels impossible. What's she like? Marcus smiled, genuine warmth flooding through him. She's funny, really funny. She tells these elaborate stories about her stuffed animals having dramatic adventures. Last week, Mr. Bunny apparently started a detective agency to find out who stole all the carrots from the kitchen. Turns out it was her imaginary friend, Gerald, who needed them for a soup kitchen for homeless vegetables. Ethan laughed, the sound bright and unexpected. It transformed his whole face, made him look like the child he should have been instead of the grief-worn boy he'd become. That's silly. That's Emma. Marcus made a final adjustment to the circuit board. Okay, moment of truth, you ready? Ethan leaned forward in his wheelchair, his hands gripping the armrests. Marcus flipped the power switch. For a second, nothing happened. Then the robot's eyes lit up, a soft blue glow. Its head turned slightly, servos whirring. The arm that had been hanging loose lifted smoothly, waved, then returned to rest position. The robot's programmed greeting played from a small speaker. "Hello, Ethan. Ready for an adventure?" Ethan's face crumpled. He reached out with shaking hands and took the robot, holding it against his chest as tears streamed down his face. But these weren't tears of despair. These were the tears of something precious returned, something thought lost forever brought back to life. "Thank you," Ethan whispered. "Thank you so much." Marcus felt his own eyes burning. "You're welcome, buddy." "How did you do that?" "The other engineers said it would take weeks, that they'd need special parts. Your dad designed this really well. And sometimes you don't need to overthink things. You just need to understand what the builder was trying to create and help that vision work."
Against the cracks, to ease the sting. He dried on his shirt hem, not cloth. He ate lunch with half a piece of dry bread, did not sit, leaned against the stove front, eyes still drawn sideways toward the window. Outside, the dark strip remained, like a cut in Earth's skin. No blood, no mouth, only telling that beneath was something unlike the rest. He picked up anything for work, checked the boards at the bed's foot, lifted, sat down, listened, still firm. By afternoon, back to the chopping block. The axe no longer heavy as in morning, not because hands were stronger, but because the head had tired. Blows struck true, with no waste, chips fewer. The stack reached his waist. He stopped, breathed long. The breath not complaint, like dust in lungs finding exit. He entered before night. The mint brittle now, a touch would break it. He did not touch. He lifted the lamp, set it closer to the table edge, then pushed it back. The glass faced the door. Through its blur, the dark strip of ground looked like a brush stroke, spilled by accident. He sat at the chair, back straight, hands on thighs, eyes on the space between table and stove. There, thought of the dark strip, flared like a coal caught by draught. He set his axe down inside his head, adding one more weight. The coal dimmed. Outside, the sky shifted voice again. No rain, no people, only the calm that comes after a night of many sounds. Inside, the objects returned to place, axe at wall, saw laid flat, lamp still dried mint, blur on glass. A man still burying himself in work, refusing his eyes to land on what he knew had shown. In this land, often the first price is working the body until it forgets the hand that wanted to dig. Morning rose slow, like an old man rising. Inside, objects back to their spots. On the shelf, the axe stood straight, handle to wall, head black and polished. The smell of iron mixed with dry pine resin. Beside it the brass lamp, rubbed bright. Soot on glass reduced to a thin ring at the rim, like smoke rim left by choice. I saw the cloth hanging at the window latch, stained two colors, brass yellow, wick black. Elias unscrewed the lamp's mouth with 2 fingers. The old knob, smooth in skin, squeaked like a chipped tooth. He pulled the wick bit by bit. Thick, black outside, inside still dirty cotton. Old oil scent rose faintly, not sharp, like a mailbox opened after winter. He did not tear it. He pulled slow until the lamp throat gaped, the inner tube bare, shining like a voiceless throat. The wick sat in his palm. He coiled it, a small loop like an old leather strap. He did not feed it to fire. He did not throw it in ash. He put it
vulnerable. Really. Ethan demonstrated the arm movements, the head turns, the programmed responses. Marcus said Dad designed it really well, that it was modular and elegant. He said you don't need to overthink things. You just need to understand what the builder was trying to create. Victoria looked up at Marcus, and for the first time, he saw past the CEO armor to the grieving mother underneath. 3 engineers told me it was unfixable, that we'd need the original design files, which were lost when my husband died. They said it would be kinder to just let it go, buy Ethan a new robot. But I don't want a new robot, Ethan said fiercely. I want Dad's robot. I know, baby. Victoria's hand smoothed over her son's hair. I know. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of how much he was intruding on this private moment. I should go. I have the rest of the floor to clean. Wait. Victoria stood, her professional composure sliding back into place. You said you're an engineer? Was. I used to work in robotics and automation, but that was years ago. Now I'm just a janitor. Just a janitor who fixed something 3 credentialed engineers couldn't. Victoria's gaze was assessing now, the CEO evaluating an unexpected asset. How long have you worked here? 8 months. And in those 8 months, has anyone on my executive team ever spoken to you, asked your name, noticed you at all? Marcus didn't answer. The silence was answer enough. Victoria's jaw tightened. I thought not. She glanced at Ethan, who was making the robot perform a programmed dance sequence, joy radiating from him. When she looked back at Marcus, something had shifted in her expression. Do you have a business card? A resume? No, ma'am, I'm just trying to keep my job and take care of my daughter. You have a daughter? Emma, she's 7. Victoria nodded slowly, as if pieces were clicking into place in her mind. Single father? Yes, ma'am. Your wife? Died 2 years ago. Another nod. Victoria pulled out her phone, typed something quickly. What time does your shift end? 6 a.m.? I'll have my assistant reach out to you tomorrow afternoon. I'd like to discuss something with you. Marcus felt a spike of anxiety. Ma'am, if this is about being in your office, I can explain. It's not about that. Victoria's voice was firm but not unkind. It's about the fact that you gave my son something I've been unable to give him for 6 months. You gave him his father back, even if just in the form of a working robot. That's not nothing, Mr. Chen. That's everything. Marcus didn't know what to say to that. He settled for a simple nod. Thank you, Victoria said quietly. Truly, thank you. You're welcome. Marcus looked at Ethan. Take care of that robot, okay? I will. Ethan waved, and the robot waved with him. See you around, Marcus. Marcus left the office, his hands shaking slightly as he pushed the cleaning cart back into the hallway. His mind was spinning. The CEO wanted to talk to him about what? A job? Impossible. He had no recent references, no updated certifications, a gap in his resume the size of the Grand Canyon. More likely, this was about boundaries, about appropriate behavior, about how janitors shouldn't be alone with executives' children, no matter how good the intentions. Marcus finished cleaning the executive floor on autopilot, his thoughts elsewhere. By the time his shift ended and he stepped out into the cold pre-dawn air, he'd convinced himself that Victoria Harrington's assistant would call to politely tell him his services were no longer needed. He drove his 12-year-old sedan across town to the tiny 2-bedroom apartment he shared with Emma, parked in the cramped lot, and climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. The building was old, the walls thin enough that he could hear his neighbors' arguments and television shows, but the rent was manageable and the school district was decent. That was all that mattered. He unlocked the door quietly. Mrs. Chen, his elderly neighbor who watched Emma overnight when Marcus worked, was dozing on the couch. She stirred when he entered. "Oh, Marcus, you're home." She stood stiffly, gathering her knitting. Emma was good tonight, did her homework, ate her dinner, went to bed on time. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I really appreciate it. Marcus pulled 3 20s from his wallet, the amount they'd agreed on. It was money he could barely spare, but childcare was expensive, and Mrs. Chen charged far less than anyone else would. "You're a good father," Mrs. Chen patted his arm. "Your wife would be proud." Marcus's throat tightened. "I hope so." After Mrs. Chen left, Marcus checked on Emma. She was asleep in her bed, surrounded by her army of stuffed animals, her dark hair spread across the pillow. She looked so much like Claire, it hurt. He adjusted her blanket, kissed her forehead gently, and whispered, "Love you, baby girl." In his own room, Marcus lay down without bothering to change out of his janitor's uniform. Exhaustion pulled at him, but his mind wouldn't stop turning over the events of the night. Ethan's tears. The broken robot. Victoria's expression when she realized someone had succeeded where her highly paid experts had failed. He thought about the look in Ethan's eyes when the robot came back to life. That pure, unguarded joy. It reminded Marcus of why he'd fallen in love with engineering in the first place. Not the money or prestige, but the ability to create things that mattered, to solve problems that seemed impossible, to make someone's life just a little bit better. He'd given that up when Claire got sick. No regrets. He'd do it again in a heartbeat. But sometimes, late at night, when the apartment was quiet and Emma was asleep, Marcus let himself remember who he used to be. A person with purpose beyond surviving paycheck to paycheck. A person whose skills meant something. Tonight, for the first time in 2 years, he'd felt like that person again. His phone buzzed. Marcus grabbed it from his nightstand, expecting a spam call. Instead, it was an unknown number with a text message. "Mr. Chen, this is Jennifer Park, assistant to Victoria Harrington. Ms. Harrington would like to meet with you today at 2 p.m. in her office. Please confirm your availability." Marcus stared at the message. 2 p.m. That was in 8 hours. He'd planned to sleep until noon, spend time with Emma, maybe take her to the park if the weather held. But this was the CEO of the company he worked for. You didn't ignore a summons like this. He typed back, "I'll be there." The response came immediately. "Thank you. Building security will be informed of your visit." Marcus set down his phone and closed his eyes. But sleep was impossible now. Whatever was about to happen, it would change things. He could feel it the way you feel a storm coming before the first drops of rain. He just hoped it would be a change he could survive. Marcus arrived at Thornhill Industries at 1:45 p.m., wearing his only dress shirt and a tie he'd borrowed from his neighbor's late husband. He felt like an imposter. The building looked completely different in daylight, gleaming glass and steel, people in expensive suits moving with purpose through the lobby. At night, it was his domain, quiet and manageable. During the day, it belonged to people like Victoria Harrington. "Marcus Chen," he told the security guard at the front desk. "I have a 2 o'clock meeting with Ms. Harrington." The guard checked his computer, then looked at Marcus with barely concealed surprise. "Take the executive elevator to the 19th floor. Ms. Park will meet you there." The elevator was the one Marcus waxed every night, but riding it felt wrong, like he was breaking some unspoken rule. He studied his reflection in the polished doors, dark circles under his eyes from too little sleep, shirt that was clean but worn at the collar, shoes he'd polished 3 times but couldn't hide the scuffs. The doors opened directly into a reception area Marcus had only ever seen empty. Now it was alive with activity, phones ringing, assistants moving between offices, the hum of a thriving company. A woman in her 30s approached immediately, her smile professional but warm. "Mr. Chen, I'm Jennifer Park. Thank you for coming on such short notice." She gestured toward a seating area. "Ms. Harrington is finishing a call. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "Water would be great, thank you." Jennifer returned with bottled water in a glass, not plastic. Marcus held it carefully, hyper-aware of his rough, calloused hands against the crystal. Through the glass walls of Victoria's office, he could see her on the phone, pacing. Even from a distance, her tension was visible in the set of her shoulders, the sharp gestures she made while speaking. "She works too hard," Jennifer said quietly, following his gaze. "Since her husband died, she's thrown herself into the company like it's the only thing holding her together." "Some days I think it is." Marcus didn't know how to respond to that. Jennifer seemed to realize she'd overshared and straightened, her professional mask slipping back into place. "She'll be ready in just a moment." Marcus waited, watching the city through the windows. 19 floors below, people moved like ants, everyone rushing somewhere, chasing something. 2 years ago, he'd been one of them. Now he cleaned up after them when they went home. The office door opened. Victoria stood there, and for a moment, Marcus saw the exhaustion carved into her features before she smoothed it away. She was wearing a different suit than last night, navy blue this time, but the same armor of professionalism. "Mr. Chen, thank you for coming." She extended her hand, and Marcus stood quickly, shaking it. Her grip was firm, businesslike. "Please come in." Victoria's office was enormous, at least 3 times the size of Marcus's entire apartment. One wall was completely glass, offering a panoramic view of the city. The furniture was modern and expensive: leather chairs, a massive desk made of dark wood, shelves lined with awards and industry recognition. But what caught Marcus's attention was the corner by the window where Ethan had been sitting last night. The wheelchair marks were still faintly visible on the carpet. "Please sit." Victoria gestured to a chair across from her desk, then surprised him by taking the chair beside it instead of sitting behind the desk. A small gesture, but it made the meeting feel less like an interrogation. "I want to start by apologizing." Marcus blinked. "Apologizing?" "For last night. My initial reaction when I found you with Ethan was..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Protective. Suspicious. You understand why?" "Of course. I'm sorry I didn't think about how it would look." "Stop." Victoria held up a hand. "You have nothing to apologize for. You heard a child crying and helped him. That's instinct, good instinct. I'm the one who should have been there for my son, instead of stuck in a meeting that could have been an email." She smiled thinly, but there was no humor in it. "Do you know how many nights Ethan waits in that corner for me to finish work?" Marcus shook his head. "Too many. Far too many." Victoria looked out the window, her composure cracking slightly. "When David died, my husband, I convinced myself that the best way to honor him was to protect everything he built. This company was his dream, and I've been running myself into the ground trying to keep it alive. But last night, watching Ethan's face when you fixed that robot, I realized something." She turned back to Marcus. "I've been so focused on preserving David's legacy through Thornhill Industries that I've neglected his actual legacy, our son." The raw honesty of it startled Marcus. This was not the conversation he'd expected. "Ethan told me you lost your wife," Victoria continued, "that you have a daughter. How do you do it? How do you balance grief and parenting and just surviving?" Marcus looked down at his hands. "Honestly, I don't. Most days I'm just trying not to drown. I work a job I'm overqualified for because it's the only one I could get with my schedule. I rely on a 70-year-old neighbor to watch my daughter at night because I can't afford real childcare. Emma deserves better than microwave dinners and a dad who's too exhausted to do more than read her one bedtime story before passing out." He looked up at Victoria. "I'm not a good example of balance. I'm just doing what I have to do." "But Emma knows you love her." "I hope so. I try to make sure she knows that, even when I can't be there as much as I want." Victoria was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. Ethan asked me this morning if you could come over for dinner. He wants to show you his other robots, ask you questions about engineering. He hasn't been that excited about anything in months. Marcus's chest tightened. That's really kind, but I have a proposition for you, Mr. Chen. I did some research after last night. You worked for Dynamic Robotics for 6 years. You were promoted twice, listed on 3 patents, and had glowing performance reviews. Then you left with no explanation, and there's a 2-year gap in your work history until you started here as a janitor. She leaned forward slightly. I'm not asking you to explain that gap. I can guess what happened, and it's none of my business. But I am asking you this. Would you consider working for me as a robotics consultant? Marcus's mind went blank. What? Thornhill Industries has a robotics division that's been struggling. We're working on assistive technology, devices to help people with mobility issues like Ethan. But our team has been stuck on several design problems for months, and we're burning through budget with nothing to show for it. Victoria pulled out a folder, opened it. I watched the security footage from last night. It took you 43 minutes to fix a problem 3 engineers said was impossible. You didn't overthink it. You just understood what needed to happen and made it happen. That was just one robot, a custom build. That doesn't mean... It means you have intuition, vision, the ability to see solutions instead of obstacles. Victoria slid the folder across to him. It contained a job description, a salary figure that made Marcus's vision blur. I'm offering you a position as lead consultant on our assistive robotics project. Contract basis initially 6 months. If it works out, we'll discuss something permanent. Marcus stared at the numbers. It was more than triple what he made as a janitor. It was enough to afford actual childcare, to move Emma into a better school district, to stop choosing between groceries and electricity. It was impossible. I can't, Marcus said, his voice rough. I don't have current certifications. My knowledge is 2 years out of date. Your team would never respect someone who's been cleaning toilets for 8 months. Then we'll get you recertified. As for respect, they'll respect results, and I have a feeling you'll deliver those. Victoria's gaze was steady. I'm not offering you charity, Mr. Chen. I'm offering you a job because you have skills this company needs. Skills I need. Skills Ethan needs. Marcus shook his head. I can't be responsible for your son's therapy or emotional well-being. That's not fair to either of us. I'm not asking you to be his therapist. I'm asking you to be someone who understands what he's going through because you're living it too. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. David was the one who sat with Ethan for hours, explaining how things worked, building projects together. I was always the business side of things, and now Ethan is trying to connect with his father through these robots, and I don't know how to help him because I don't speak that language, but you do. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Marcus wanted to say yes. God, he wanted to say yes so badly his hands were shaking, but fear held him back. The fear of failing, of being exposed as a fraud, of losing what little stability he'd managed to create for Emma. Can I think about it? He asked quietly. Victoria nodded. Of course. Take until Monday. The job description has my direct number. Call me when you've decided. Marcus stood, folder in hand. Thank you for the offer and for not being angry about last night. Thank you for reminding me what matters. Victoria stood as well, walked him to the door. Mr. Chen? Marcus? He turned. Whatever you decide, Ethan would still like you to come for dinner, just as a friend. No pressure, no obligations. Just 2 single parents and their kids sharing a meal. She smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. Emma's welcome, too. Ethan could use a friend his own age. Marcus thought about Emma, who had been asking for a friend to play with, who got lonely in their quiet apartment. I'd need to check with Emma, but yeah, that would be nice. Saturday, 6 o'clock. Okay, Saturday. Marcus left the building in a daze. In his car, he sat gripping the steering wheel, staring at the folder on the passenger seat. The job description was detailed, professional, exactly the kind of work he'd dreamed of doing when he first started in robotics. Before life got complicated, before Claire got sick, before dreams became luxuries he couldn't afford. He drove to Emma's school, arriving early for pickup. Other parents waited in their cars, most of them mothers, most of them looking at him with curiosity or pity. Single dad. Poor thing, they never said it out loud, but he felt the judgment anyway. Emma burst out of the building at 3:15, backpack bouncing, her teacher following behind with that look Marcus had learned to dread. "Mr. Chen, could we talk for a moment?" Marcus's stomach sank. "Of course. Emma, wait by the car, okay?" Emma nodded and ran ahead, already distracted by a butterfly. "Is everything okay?" Marcus asked. "Emma's doing well academically," Ms. Rodriguez said carefully, "but I'm concerned about her socially. She doesn't really engage with the other children during free play. She sits by herself, drawing or reading. When I encourage her to join groups, she says she's fine alone." "She's always been a bit shy," Marcus said, defensive despite himself. "It's more than shyness. She seems sad, withdrawn. Has anything changed at home?" "Everything," Marcus wanted to say. "Her mother died. Her father works all night and sleeps all day. We barely have time together, and I'm failing her in every way that matters." "We're managing," he said instead. "I'll talk to her." Ms. Rodriguez looked like she wanted to say more, but nodded. "Please let me know if there's anything the school can do to support her." In the car, Emma was quiet. Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "How was school, Princess?" "Fine. Just fine." "Yeah?" Marcus pulled into a fast food parking lot, turned to face her. "Emma, look at me." She did, and Marcus's heart broke at the sadness in her eyes. She was 7. She shouldn't carry that kind of weight. "Ms. Rodriguez says you're not playing with the other kids. Why not?" Emma shrugged. "They have stuff I don't have. They talk about going places and doing things, and I don't want to tell them that we don't do those things because you're tired and we don't have money." Marcus felt like he'd been punched. "Oh, baby. It's okay, Daddy. I know you're trying really hard. I don't want you to feel bad." But Marcus did feel bad. He felt terrible. His 7-year-old daughter was protecting his feelings, making herself smaller so he wouldn't hurt more. "How about this?" Marcus said, pulling out the folder. "I got offered a new job today, a really good job. If I take it, things might get easier. We could do more fun stuff together. You could have friends over." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? Really? But it means I'd be working during the day instead of at night. I'd be home with you in the evenings." "Every evening?" "Most of them." Emma launched herself forward, hugging him as much as the seatbelt allowed. "That would be so cool. Could we have dinner together? Real dinner, not just microwave stuff." "Yeah, baby, real dinners." "Then you should take it." Marcus hugged her back, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo. "There's something else. Remember I told you about fixing a robot last night? The boy who owned it, his name is Ethan. His mom invited us over for dinner on Saturday. Ethan is 9 and he's in a wheelchair, but he's really smart and nice. Would you like to meet him?" Emma pulled back, eyes shining. "A friend? Maybe, if you two like each other." "Okay, yes, can we go?" Marcus laughed, the first genuine laugh he'd had in days. "Yes, we can go." That evening, after Emma went to bed, Marcus called his old colleague from Dynamic Robotics, the only person from his former life who'd stayed in touch. Marcus, holy crap, man. I haven't heard from you in forever. Hey, Tony, I know it's late. You got a minute? For you? Yeah, hold on. Background noise faded as Tony moved to a quieter space. What's going on? Marcus explained the situation, the robot, the meeting, the job offer. Tony listened without interrupting. So you're asking me if you should take it, Tony said when Marcus finished. I'm asking if I can actually do it, if I'm fooling myself thinking I can just jump back in after 2 years of being out of the field. Marcus, you were one of the best engineers I ever worked with. You have instincts that can't be taught. Yeah, technologies move forward, but the fundamentals are the same. You can catch up on the technical stuff in a few weeks. What if I fail? What if you succeed? Tony countered. Look, I get it. You've been in survival mode, but surviving isn't living, and Emma needs to see you living, not just existing. Marcus closed his eyes. I'm scared, Tony. Of course you are. Claire dying, everything that happened after, it broke something in you. I get it. But you fixed a robot that 3 engineers couldn't fix. You did it in under an hour with basic tools because you understood what it was meant to be. That's not gone, Marcus. That's still you. After they hung up, Marcus sat in the dark living room, thinking. Emma's words echoed in his head. Could we have dinner together? Real dinner, not just microwave stuff? Such a simple thing, such an impossible dream for them right now. The folder sat on the coffee table. Marcus picked it up, read through it carefully. The job was challenging but manageable. The salary was life-changing. The risk was enormous. But the risk of saying no, of staying trapped in this half-life, might be even bigger. Saturday came too quickly. Marcus stood outside Victoria Harrington's house. Calling it a house was like calling the ocean a puddle, wondering if this was a mistake. The property was gated, sprawling, the kind of place that appeared in architecture magazines. Emma gripped his hand tightly, wearing her best dress, the one they'd bought for Claire's funeral, and that was now a bit too small. It's so big, Emma whispered. Yeah, it is. Marcus rang the doorbell, which chimed with a melody that probably cost more than his car. Jennifer Park opened the door, smiling warmly. Mr. Chen, Emma, welcome. Come in, please. The interior was stunning. High ceilings, art on the walls, furniture that looked expensive but somehow still comfortable. Not the cold museum Marcus had feared, but a real home that just happened to be enormous. They're in the living room, Jennifer said, leading them through. I'll let Ms. Harrington know you're here. The living room had a wall of windows, overlooking a garden lit with soft lights. Ethan sat in his wheelchair near a coffee table, covered with partially assembled robots. When he saw Marcus and Emma, his face lit up. Marcus, you came. He wheeled over quickly, then looked shyly at Emma. Hi, I'm Ethan. I'm Emma. She looked at the robots with undisguised fascination. Are those all yours? Yeah, my dad and I built most of them. Do you want to see? Really? Yes. Just like that, the ice was broken. Emma sat on the floor beside Ethan's wheelchair, and he started explaining each robot, what it did, how it worked, what he and his father had planned for it. Emma listened with rapt attention, asking questions that showed she actually cared about the answers. She's a natural. Victoria's voice came from behind Marcus. He turned to find her standing there, and for a moment he didn't recognize her. She wore jeans and a soft blue sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. No makeup, no armor, just a tired woman who looked younger and more vulnerable than the CEO he'd met days before. She loves learning new things, Marcus said. Always has. She drives me crazy with questions sometimes. Victoria smiled. David was like that. He could take apart anything and understand how it worked just by looking at it. Ethan inherited that gift. Her expression softened as she watched the children. I didn't. I can run a company, negotiate contracts, manage people, but I can't build things. I can't speak that language. Different skills, equally important. Are they? Victoria's voice was quiet, almost pained. Because right now, the skill Ethan needs is someone who can sit with him and talk about circuits and servos and design problems. And I can't give him that. Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he just stood beside her, watching their children. Emma was laughing at something Ethan said, and Ethan was beaming, more animated than Marcus had seen him. "Dinner's ready whenever we are," Victoria said after a moment, "but let's give them a bit longer." They moved to the kitchen, which was somehow both enormous and cozy, with an island that could seat 10 and a breakfast nook by a window. Victoria pulled out pre-made dishes from the fridge, clearly catered, but she was making an effort to present them as homemade. "I can't cook," she admitted when she saw Marcus watching. "David did all the cooking. I handled takeout ordering." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "It's ridiculous, isn't it? I run a multi-million-dollar company, but I can't make spaghetti without burning it." "I can teach you if you want. It's not hard once you know the basics." Victoria looked at him with surprise. "You'd do that?" "Sure, I'm not a great cook either, but I've learned what Emma likes and how to make it without poisoning us both. That's the bar for single-parent cooking." Victoria laughed, genuine and surprised, like she'd forgotten how. "Maybe I'll take you up on that." They called the kids for dinner, and the four of them sat at the smaller kitchen table rather than the formal dining room. Emma and Ethan sat beside each other, already talking like old friends. Ethan explained his wheelchair, cerebral palsy, present since birth, not caused by an accident like Marcus had assumed. And Emma listened without the awkward pity most people showed. She just asked practical questions about how things worked, whether he could feel his legs if the wheelchair was hard to control. "I'm getting better at it," Ethan said proudly. "Physical therapy helps, and Dad designed some modifications to make it easier." "Your dad was really smart," Emma said matter-of-factly. "My mom was smart too. She knew everything about plants and nature. She used to take me on walks and tell me about all the different trees and flowers." "Did she die too?" Ethan asked gently. "Yeah, 2 years ago, cancer." "Mine was a year ago, heart attack." Emma nodded seriously. "Do you miss yours?" "Every day." "Me too." Marcus and Victoria exchanged a look across the table. Their children were processing grief with an honesty adults struggled to achieve, finding common ground in loss. After dinner, the kids wanted to work on robots together. Victoria set them up in the living room with supplies, and Marcus helped Ethan show Emma how to program a simple movement sequence. Emma caught on quickly, her face scrunched in concentration. "She's a natural," Ethan declared. "Marcus, your daughter is really smart." Marcus ruffled Emma's hair. "She gets that from her mom." Victoria and Marcus ended up in the garden while the kids played under Jennifer's watchful eye. The night air was cool, the garden peaceful with its subtle lighting and the soft sound of a fountain. "Have you decided," Victoria asked, "about the job?" Marcus had been dreading this question all evening. "I want to say yes, I really do, but I'm terrified of letting you down, of proving that I can't actually do what you need." "What if I told you I'm terrified too?" Victoria sat on a stone bench, looking up at the stars barely visible through the city's light pollution. "I'm terrified that I'm failing Ethan, that I'm so focused on keeping David's company alive that I'm letting his son down, that I'm turning into exactly what David always feared, someone who prioritizes business over people." Marcus sat beside her, careful to maintain respectful distance. "You're here now, you're trying. That counts for something." "Does it? Because most nights I'm in the office until 10 or 11, and Ethan waits for me like you saw. He does his homework, eats dinner with his nurse, and sits in that wheelchair in my office corner until I'm done with meetings. What kind of mother does that? A mother who's doing the best she can in an impossible situation, Marcus said firmly. Victoria, you're keeping a company running while raising a child with special needs on your own. You're not failing, you're surviving, just like me. Victoria looked at him, tears shining in her eyes. When you fixed that robot, when I saw Ethan's face light up like that, I realized something. I've been so focused on what I've lost that I stopped seeing what I still have. And what I have is a son who needs me to be present, not perfect. So be present. That's all they really want. Trust me, Emma would rather have me reading her a 5-minute bedtime story than expensive toys or fancy trips. Is that why you're hesitating about the job? Because you're worried about time? Partly, but also because I don't want to be in a position where I'm expected to be around Ethan as some kind of father figure. That's not fair to him or to you. Victoria shook her head. I'm not looking for a father replacement. David was irreplaceable. But Ethan needs adults in his life who understand his interests, who can talk to him about the things that excite him. He needs community, so do I. She looked at Marcus directly. So do you, so does Emma. Maybe we all need each other. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and risk. I'll take the job, Marcus said quietly, but I need some ground rules. Work is work. I'm your employee, not your family. The boundaries need to be clear. Agreed. And I need a ground rule too. If you see me prioritizing work over Ethan, call me out. I need someone who will be honest with me. Deal. They shook hands, and something shifted. Not romance, not yet, but understanding. Recognition of two people trying to navigate the same impossible balance. Inside, Emma had fallen asleep on the couch, curled up with one of Ethan's robot prototypes in her arms. Ethan was still awake, but fading, his eyes heavy. We should go, Marcus said softly. Thank you for coming, Victoria said. This was nice. Really nice. Yeah, it was. Marcus carried Emma to the car, buckled her in. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. Victoria and Ethan waved from the doorway, backlit by the warm light of their enormous house that somehow felt less lonely than before. On the drive home, Marcus thought about the future. Monday, he'd start his new job. He'd call his landlord and give notice on their apartment, find something better. He'd enroll Emma in a school with better programs, maybe even art classes or music lessons. They'd have dinners together, real ones, at a table instead of in front of the TV. Things were changing. Scary, thrilling, terrifying change. But maybe, just maybe, they were changing for the better. For the first time in 2 years, Marcus Chen let himself hope. Marcus's first day as a robotics consultant should have been triumphant. Instead, it was a masterclass in humiliation. The robotics division occupied the entire 12th floor, and from the moment Marcus stepped off the elevator, he felt the weight of judgment. Engineers in their 20s and 30s, fresh from top universities, stared at him with barely concealed skepticism. He was wearing his best and only suit, but it still looked cheap next to their designer clothes and expensive watches. This is Marcus Chen, Victoria announced to the assembled team of 15 engineers. He'll be leading the assistive robotics project as our new consultant. A woman in her late 20s, Dr. Sarah Kim, according to her nameplate, spoke up immediately. With all due respect, Ms. Harrington, we've been working on this project for 8 months. What qualifications does Mr. Chen have that we don't? He fixed a problem in 40 minutes that stumped 3 senior engineers, Victoria said coolly. I'd say that qualifies him. One lucky repair doesn't mean... It wasn't luck. Marcus's voice was quiet but firm. He'd dealt with skepticism before in his previous life. It was understanding the builder's intent and working with the design instead of against it. Sometimes we overcomplicate things when the solution is simpler than we think. Dr. Kim's eyes narrowed. And you think we're overcomplicating our current project? I don't know yet. I haven't seen your work. Marcus met her gaze steadily. But I'm here to help, not judge. If you're willing to show me what you've been working on, maybe we can find a solution together. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Victoria looked at Marcus with something like respect, then addressed the team. Give him a chance, that's all I'm asking. Show him the prototype, explain the problems you're facing. Mr. Chen has a week to assess the situation and make recommendations. If his approach doesn't work, we'll reconsider. After Victoria left, the team grudgingly showed Marcus to the lab. The assistive device they'd been developing was elegant in theory, a powered exoskeleton designed to help people with limited mobility stand and walk short distances. But the prototype on the table was a mess of exposed wiring, misaligned joints, and motors that whined unhappily when activated. The problem is power distribution, Dr. Kim explained, her tone suggesting she didn't expect Marcus to understand. The battery drains too quickly, and the weight distribution makes it unstable. We've tried 17 different configurations, and none of them work for more than 5 minutes of operation. Marcus circled the prototype slowly, his engineering mind already analyzing the design. Who determined the motor specifications? We did, based on standard calculations for weight-bearing capacity. And the battery placement? Centralized in the back unit for balance. Marcus nodded slowly, seeing the problem immediately. Can I test it? Dr. Kim hesitated, then shrugged. Sure, but it won't work. Marcus activated the exoskeleton, listened to the motors, felt the vibration through the frame. He asked for a tablet, pulled up the design schematics, and spent 20 minutes studying them in silence, while the team watched with varying degrees of impatience. The problem isn't the battery capacity, Marcus said finally. It's that you're fighting physics. Centralized battery placement seems logical for balance, but it's creating a pendulum effect. Every step shifts the center of gravity too much, which requires the motors to compensate, which drains power exponentially. He pointed to specific areas on the schematic. If we distribute the battery into smaller units along the leg supports and lower back, we reduce the pendulum effect and decrease the motor load by at least 30%. The room went quiet. Dr. Kim stepped forward, looking at the schematic with new attention. That could actually work, but it would require complete redesign of the power distribution system. Not complete, we can modify the existing framework. Marcus was already sketching on the tablet. We use modular battery packs here, here, and here. Connect them through these existing channels. The rewiring would take maybe 3 days. An older engineer, Thomas, spoke up. Where did you work before, Mr. Chen? Dynamic robotics, 6 years in advanced automation. Why'd you leave? Marcus's jaw tightened. Personal reasons. And then you became a janitor. Dr. Kim's tone was sharp. That's quite a career trajectory. My wife had cancer, Marcus said flatly. I left to take care of her. When she died, I had a 7-year-old daughter and medical debt that would take 20 years to pay off. The janitorial job was what I could get with my schedule. Any other questions about my personal life, or can we focus on the project? The room fell silent. Dr. Kim had the grace to look uncomfortable. I'm sorry, she said quietly. That was unprofessional. Marcus nodded, accepting the apology. Let's start the modifications tomorrow. I'll need 2 people to help with the technical work. Who's interested? To his surprise, several hands went up. Maybe he'd earned a sliver of respect. The week passed in a blur of long days and incremental progress. Marcus's modifications worked, reducing power consumption by 32% and extending operation time from 5 minutes to 23. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was real progress after months of stagnation. Emma adjusted to their new apartment, still small but in a safer neighborhood with better schools. She loved having her own room and having Marcus home for dinner every night. They'd fallen into a rhythm of cooking together, Emma standing on a stool beside him, carefully stirring pots, while Marcus chopped vegetables and told her about his day in terms she could understand. On Friday evening, Victoria called his work phone. "How's the first week going?" "Better than expected. The team was skeptical at first, but they're coming around. We made real progress on the exoskeleton." "I heard. Sarah Kim gave me a glowing report. She said, and I quote, 'He's the real deal.'" Victoria's smile was audible through the phone. "I told you. You took a big risk. It's paying off." She paused. "Ethan asks about you and Emma constantly. He wants to know if you'd both come over tomorrow. I'm attempting to cook spaghetti, and I could use supervision so I don't poison my son." Marcus laughed. "Cooking lesson and dinner? We can do that." "Thank you. Seriously, Marcus, for everything." Saturday's cooking lesson was chaotic and perfect. Victoria burned the first pot of sauce, forgot to salt the pasta water, and somehow managed to get flour in her hair, despite the recipe not calling for flour. Emma and Ethan watched from the kitchen table, giggling at every mistake. "I'm a disaster," Victoria declared, staring at the ruined sauce. "You're learning," Marcus corrected. "Try again. This time, lower heat and constant stirring." The second attempt was better. The sauce didn't burn, the pasta was edible, and the garlic bread was only slightly overdone. They ate at the kitchen table, 4 people who'd been strangers 3 weeks ago, now comfortable enough to laugh at burnt food and share stories about their days. After dinner, while the kids worked on a new robot project, Victoria and Marcus cleaned up together. It felt domestic in a way that both comforted and unsettled Marcus. This wasn't his life. This was borrowed time in someone else's world. "You're thinking too much," Victoria said, watching him. "I can see it on your face. Just wondering how long this lasts before something breaks." "Why does something have to break?" "Because good things don't last, not in my experience." Victoria dried her hands, turned to face him fully. "Marcus, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. You saved my son from drowning in grief. You gave me permission to be human instead of perfect. In 3 weeks, you've done more for my family than anyone has since David died. That's not going to break. I won't let it." Marcus wanted to believe her, but experience had taught him that life had a way of taking away the things that mattered most. He was right to worry. Monday morning, Marcus arrived at work to find Dr. Kim waiting by his office with an expression that made his stomach drop. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "Someone leaked information about the exoskeleton prototype to Novus Tech. They've filed a patent claim saying our design infringes on their proprietary technology." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "That's impossible. I saw the schematics. This design is completely original. Novus is claiming the modular battery distribution system is too similar to their patent filed 6 months ago." Dr. Kim pulled up documents on her tablet. "Look familiar?" Marcus studied the patent documents, his engineering mind analyzing every detail. "This is different. Their system uses sequential power distribution. Ours uses parallel distribution. Completely different architecture. Try explaining that to their lawyers. They're threatening legal action if we don't cease development immediately." Marcus's mind raced. Someone on our team leaked this. Someone who knew about my modifications and contacted Novus. "That's what I think too, but I don't know who." Marcus spent the day reviewing security logs, comparing timestamps of file access, trying to identify the leak. By evening, he had his answer. Jonathan Pierce, a junior engineer who'd been passed over for promotion 3 times. He'd accessed the design files after hours and sent them to an external email address registered to a Novus Tech employee. Marcus reported his findings to Victoria, who looked more tired than he'd ever seen her. "Pierce is denying everything," she said. "And even if we fire him, the damage is done. Novus is moving forward with their claim. Our lawyers say fighting it could take months and cost millions. So we stop development? We might have to." Victoria's voice was hollow. "This project was supposed to help people like Ethan, real people who need mobility assistance, and now it's caught up in corporate warfare." Marcus felt anger building in his chest. "No, we don't stop. We redesign, make it so different from their patent that there's no question of infringement." "Marcus, that could take months. We don't have that kind of time or budget." "Then give me 2 weeks. Let me try." Victoria looked at him with exhaustion and hope warring in her expression. "You really think you can do it?" "I have to, because if I don't, Jonathan Pierce wins, Novus Tech wins, and people who need help lose." Victoria nodded slowly. 2 weeks. But Marcus, if this doesn't work, I'll have to shut down the entire robotics division. The board is already questioning whether it's worth the investment. That evening, Marcus called Tony. "I need your help," Marcus said without preamble. "I need to redesign an entire power distribution system in 2 weeks, and I need it to be bulletproof against patent claims." "That's impossible." "I know. Help me do it anyway." Tony sighed. "Send me the specs. I'll see what I can do." Marcus worked 18-hour days. Emma noticed her earlier happiness fading as her father disappeared back into work obsession. He missed 2 dinners, forgot to pack her lunch one day, fell asleep on the couch instead of reading her bedtime story. On Thursday, Emma came to him with tears in her eyes. "Are you going to disappear again like you did after Mom died?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. "What?" "After Mom died, you were there, but not really there. You were just sad and tired all the time. And now you're doing it again. You're working all the time, and you're not seeing me." Marcus knelt in front of her, his heart breaking. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm just trying to fix something important at work." "More important than me?" The accusation was devastating because it was fair. He'd been so focused on proving himself, on saving the project, that he'd repeated the exact pattern he'd sworn to break. "No," Marcus said firmly. "Nothing is more important than you. Nothing. I'm sorry I forgot that. I don't want you to stop working. I just want you to be here when you're here, like you were before." Marcus pulled her into a hug. "You're right. You're absolutely right. I'll do better, I promise." That night, Marcus made a decision. He called Victoria. "I need to step back from the project." "What? Marcus, you're so close." "I'm losing my daughter," Marcus said simply. "I'm becoming exactly what I was afraid of becoming. Emma deserves better." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "Bring her here, tomorrow after school. Both of you come here and we'll work together while the kids play. You don't have to choose between work and Emma. We'll find a way to do both." "Victoria, I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering, because that's what family does." The word hung in the air. Family. "Okay," Marcus said quietly. "Thank you." Friday afternoon, Marcus and Emma arrived at Victoria's house. Ethan was thrilled to see them. Immediately pulling Emma toward his collection of robots, Victoria set up the dining room table as a workspace, bringing her laptop and files. "I'll work on legal strategy while you work on technical redesign," she said. "The kids can play, and we can all be together. Multitasking at its finest." It was chaotic and imperfect. Emma interrupted every 20 minutes with questions or to show Marcus something Ethan had taught her. Ethan needed help reaching supplies. Victoria burned popcorn in the microwave, setting off the smoke alarm, but somehow, in the chaos, something beautiful emerged. Marcus had a breakthrough on the power distribution design. Victoria found a precedent case that weakened Novus Tech's claim. Emma and Ethan built a robot that could draw pictures, and for the first time in weeks, Marcus felt like he could breathe. "This is nice," Victoria said during a rare, quiet moment. The kids had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from building. "Messy and loud and overwhelming, but nice." "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "It is." "I've been thinking," Victoria said carefully, "about what you said, about boundaries between work and family. Maybe those boundaries aren't as clear as we thought." "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe we're already family. Maybe we have been since the night you fixed Ethan's robot." She looked at him directly. "Maybe it's time we stopped pretending otherwise." Marcus's heart hammered in his chest. "Victoria, I work for you. The power dynamic is something we can navigate carefully. I'm not asking you to be my employee, who I also have feelings for. I'm asking if you feel what I feel, if this thing between us is real or if I'm imagining it." Marcus thought about the past 3 weeks, the dinners, the conversations, the way Victoria looked at him like he was more than just a janitor or an engineer, the way Emma and Ethan had become inseparable, the way he felt complete for the first time since Claire died. "It's real," he said quietly, "but I'm terrified. I lost Claire and I barely survived. If I let myself care about you and something happens, then we'll face it together," Victoria interrupted. "Marcus, we're both scared. We're both carrying grief. But maybe that's exactly why this works. We understand each other's broken pieces." Before Marcus could respond, Ethan stirred on the couch. "Mom?" His voice was thick with sleep. "Are you and Marcus going to get married?" Victoria laughed, startled. "Ethan, we're just friends." "But you like him, I can tell, and he likes you." Ethan rubbed his eyes. "And Emma and I already feel like brother and sister, so why not make it official?" Emma sat up, instantly awake. "Are we going to be a real family?" The hope in her voice was almost unbearable. Marcus looked at Victoria, saw his own fear and longing reflected in her eyes. "How about we start with dating?" Victoria suggested gently. "See how things go?" "That means yes eventually, right?" Ethan pressed. "That means maybe," Victoria corrected. "But it definitely means we're all going to spend more time together." Emma launched herself at Marcus, hugging him tight. "I like this family." Ethan wheeled over to Victoria. "Me too." The following Monday, Marcus presented his redesigned power distribution system to the engineering team and the legal department. It was radically different from the original design, using a hybrid sequential parallel architecture that bore no resemblance to Novus Tech's patent, while actually improving performance. "This is brilliant," Dr. Kim said, studying the schematics. "Completely defensible and potentially more efficient than our original design." The legal team agreed. Novus Tech's claim was baseless against the new design. The project could continue. Victoria's announcement to the board was short and victorious. "Not only have we resolved the patent issue, but Mr. Chen's redesign has improved the prototype's efficiency by 41%. We're back on track for trials by end of quarter." The board approved continued funding. The robotics division was saved. That evening, the 4 of them, Marcus, Emma, Victoria, and Ethan, celebrated at Victoria's house with pizza and ice cream. Emma and Ethan wore matching robot t-shirts Victoria had bought them. Marcus and Victoria sat close together on the couch, not quite touching but close enough to feel each other's warmth. "What happens now?" Marcus asked quietly. Now we keep going, Victoria said. We work on the project, we raise our kids, we figure out what this thing between us is. She smiled at him. No pressure, no timelines, just possibility. I can do possibility. Good, because I'm not going anywhere, and neither are you. Ethan interrupted, calling them over to see the new robot he and Emma had programmed. It could dance now, sort of, a jerky, enthusiastic movement that made everyone laugh. Look, Dad, Ethan said, then froze. He looked at Marcus with wide eyes. I mean, Marcus, sorry. Marcus felt his throat close up. It's okay, buddy. You can call me whatever feels right. Is Dad okay? Marcus looked at Victoria, who nodded with tears in her eyes. Yeah, Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. Dad is okay. Emma hugged Ethan. Now, we're really siblings. 3 months later, the assistive exoskeleton prototype was ready for human trials. The first test subject was a young woman who'd lost mobility in a car accident. When she stood for the first time in 2 years, supported by the device Marcus and his team had created, everyone in the lab cried. Victoria stood beside Marcus, watching through the observation window. You did this. You changed her life. We did this, all of us. Marcus looked at her. You gave me a second chance, not just at a career, but at living. You gave me something too, Victoria said softly. You reminded me that strength isn't about being invulnerable. It's about being honest about our brokenness and choosing to heal anyway. 6 months after that, Marcus officially became the director of assistive robotics, not a consultant, a permanent position with a permanent place in Victoria's company and in her life. Emma and Ethan were in the same school now, inseparable, constantly building things and asking impossible questions. Emma's teacher reported she was thriving socially, making friends, laughing more than she had in years. Victoria had stepped back from some of her responsibilities, hiring a COO to handle day-to-day operations, while she focused on strategy and family. She'd learned to cook, sort of. Her spaghetti was edible now, and she could make exactly 3 other dishes without causing a fire alarm. Marcus and Victoria were careful with their relationship, taking things slowly, aware of the kids watching and learning what healthy love looked like. They went on dates, real ones, just the 2 of them, while Mrs. Chen watched all the kids. They held hands during movies. They kissed goodnight on Victoria's doorstep like teenagers figuring out what romance meant. It wasn't perfect. There were hard days when grief ambushed them both. Days when Marcus missed Claire so intensely it hurt to breathe. Days when Victoria cried over old photos of David and questioned every decision she'd made since he died. But they faced those days together, proving that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant making room for new love without erasing old love. 1 year after the night Marcus fixed Ethan's robot, the 4 of them went to the park. Emma pushed Ethan's wheelchair while he directed her toward the accessible playground equipment. Marcus and Victoria walked behind them, hands intertwined. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd kept walking that night? Victoria asked. If you'd ignored Ethan crying and just finished your shift? I think about it sometimes, Marcus admitted. How one decision changed everything, but I don't regret it, not for a second. Neither do I. Victoria stopped walking, turned to face him. Marcus Chen, will you marry me? Marcus's eyes widened. What? I'm serious. I know we said we'd take things slow, but I don't want to waste any more time. Life is short, and I want to spend the rest of mine with you. She smiled through tears. We're already a family. Let's make it official. Marcus looked at their children playing together without a care in the world. He looked at Victoria, this brilliant, broken, beautiful woman who'd taken a chance on a janitor with a broken heart and hidden dreams. Yes, he said. Yes, absolutely, yes. They got married 6 months later in the same garden where they'd first really talked, where Victoria had admitted she was failing and Marcus had admitted he was terrified. Emma was the flower girl. Ethan rolled down the aisle in his wheelchair decorated with flowers and robots. Mrs. Chen cried in the front row. It was small and perfect and real. At the reception, Emma and Ethan gave a speech. "Our parents died," Ethan said seriously, "and it was really sad and really hard. But then our new parents found each other," Emma continued, "because Marcus fixed a robot and Mom saw that he was good. And now we have a family again," they said together. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Later, Marcus found a quiet moment with Victoria. They stood apart from the celebration, watching their kids dance, Emma carefully spinning Ethan's wheelchair in circles while he laughed. "I never thought I'd be happy again," Marcus confessed. "After Claire died, I thought that part of my life was over." "David told me once that love doesn't divide, it multiplies," Victoria said. "I didn't understand what he meant until I met you. Loving you doesn't make me love him less. It just means I have more love to give." Marcus pulled her close. "Thank you for seeing me, for seeing past the janitor's uniform to who I really was. Thank you for fixing my son's robot and breaking open my heart." They kissed as the sun set. Two people who'd been broken and had found wholeness, not in being repaired, but in embracing their cracks and building something new from the pieces. Comment below what part touched you the most, or made you pause and feel something. Your words matter more than you know. The assistive exoskeleton project went into full production a year later. It was affordable, accessible, and changed thousands of lives. Marcus never forgot that it all started with a crying child and a broken robot. Victoria never forgot that sometimes the most important people are the ones we almost overlook. Emma and Ethan grew up as siblings, brilliant and kind, carrying their parents' legacies and creating their own. And Marcus Chen, former janitor turned director of assistive robotics, proved that your past doesn't define you. Your choices do. Your willingness to help a stranger, your courage to accept a second chance, your ability to love again even when you're terrified of losing again. Real heroes don't wear capes. They wear janitor uniforms and fix robots at midnight. They take impossible risks on people everyone else overlooks. They build families from broken pieces and call it beautiful. Marcus whispered to Claire's memory sometimes, grateful she'd taught him how to love deeply enough that he could do it again. Not as a replacement, but as a continuation. Love doesn't end when someone dies. It transforms, finds new expressions, new people to hold. Victoria learned that strength isn't about control. It's about vulnerability, about letting the right people past your walls, about trusting that you can survive being seen. Their children learned that families come in all forms, that love is big enough to include grief and joy simultaneously, that broken things can be beautiful when mended with care. And in the end, it all came back to one simple truth. Sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the smallest act of kindness. A janitor hearing a child cry and choosing to care. One choice, one moment, one broken robot that changed 4 lives. Forever. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.